Hi guys, today we're gonna make a Coraline doll. It's just a perfect cozy activity for autumn, honestly. And I love doing this, so I'm gonna show you how I did one. Hi, my name is Anna and I love creating silly stuff. So I'm doing this mini-me doll for, this one I'm actually doing it for a friend, so that's why it doesn't look like me. It's a mini-me, but just a mini-me of my friend. I'm obviously nowhere near a professional. I'm still pretty much a beginner at making dolls, but I thought I'd just share with you what I learned by making this doll. So yeah, I hope you're gonna enjoy the video. I used a bunch of different materials to make this Coraline doll, but you definitely can just use stuff you already have at home. And so for instance, I did the body with aluminum wire and I wrapped it around with some wool, but you can also just sew the shape of the body on fabric and then stuff it with stuffing. So there are many different ways to do the body as well as the face. I used aluminum wire to make the skeleton of the doll, as well as some yarn, some felt fabric, some old scraps of fabric as well. I also used polymer clay, but you can definitely use air dry clay or any type of clay you have at home really. I like using polymer clay because once it's baked in the oven, it's really sturdy in my opinion. You can also use old buttons, but you can also sculpt these buttons if you don't have buttons at home. I also used acrylic paint, so yeah. Let's get into this. What I did first was to make the skeleton of the doll, and I made the mistake of using a 1mm aluminum wire, and I would recommend that you use at least a 2mm aluminum wire because mine ended up breaking when the doll was already made, so it was a little hard for me to repair it. So yeah, definitely make sure you take a wire that is strong enough, because otherwise your doll might end up not being sturdy enough. So I started to make a body shape with the wire. Just know that my doll ended up being a little taller than what I wanted her to be, so I would definitely recommend that you take those measurements and reduce them a little if you want an optimal sized doll, but it depends on your preference. But just know that mine was a little too big for my liking. This part is really fun, but it hurts the fingers a little, and it allows basically to strengthen the body. Once you're done twisting the body, you're gonna take some yarn, the thicker the better, and you're gonna roll it and roll it and roll it over the body until you obtain the corpulence you like. I personally used white wool because that's what I had, but you can definitely, if you have it, use a skin-toned wool, so it will prevent you from having to add fabric on top of it to make the skin color. And you should now have a little mummy between your hands. And now we're going to secure the whole thing by passing the yarn through the body with a needle several times. You can also make a little knot, and also you can add a little point of glue to secure the whole thing. So before I started actually making the clothes, I had to create the skin, but this is totally optional depending on what your doll will look like. I know mine will have to be wearing some shorts, so I had to make the skin apparent on the legs as well as on the arms since she was wearing a t-shirt. So I personally used some beige felt, but you could just paint the yarn directly or just use the right colored yarn, or you can even use some cotton fabric if you have some. I just used felt because it seemed like the easiest way to do this. But honestly, now that I think about it, perhaps I should have just painted the yarn. So I cut the felt fabric in order for it to be fitted to the legs, and once it was done, I just sewed it on top of the yarn and secured it a little. But the problem with this is that the stitching is apparent, and I don't know if that annoys me or not. So I love my cat, but like, how am I supposed to work? Oh, okay. And once I had covered the parts I wanted to cover, it was finally time to make the clothes. Now, honestly, I don't even know how to explain how I managed to do that, because I don't even know how to sew. So me being able to make clothes is pretty much a miracle. I just followed a YouTube tutorial, honestly. So I started by making the shorts. So I did it in 4 parts. So 2 parts for the front of the shorts and 2 parts for the back of the shorts. If you want to make pants, definitely don't make them only in 2 parts, because it's gonna look weird. I already tested it, it's not right. So I tried to make some oversized shorts, so I let a lot of additional fabric compared to the size of the legs. And as you can see, I tried to shape the legs so they would be flared, and I added 0.5 centimeter all around the piece, so I would have room to stitch the fabric with the other pieces. Then I traced the pattern onto some old jeans and I cut it. And I started by assembling the 2 front pieces of the jeans together and then the 2 back pieces of the jeans together. And I also oversewed all of the edges of each fabric piece so it would not fall into little pieces. As you can see, once I was done sewing together the 2 front pieces of the jeans and the 2 back pieces, I sewed together those 2 parts on one of the sides. Before putting the shorts on the doll body, I sewed the crotch, and then I flipped the pair of jeans on the right size, put it on the doll's body, and finished sewing them directly onto the body so it would fit properly. And here's what the pair of shorts looks like. It looks kind of weird still, but this is my maximum, like, on the sewing skill thingy. I can't do better than this, and I think that's already pretty satisfying, knowing that I don't know how to sew. Then for the t-shirt, I just cut 2 squares of felt fabric that I had beforehand measured to be a little oversized, and I also cut 2 rectangles for the sleeves. The reference that I used for the t-shirt had some graphic designs on it, so at first I thought that I would use fabric paint to draw them, but that was a terrible idea. I didn't like at all what it looked like, so I decided that I would cut the patterns on some white felt fabric and just sew them on. And I thought that how it looked was so much better than just painting it, and it added a little bit of volume and texture on the t-shirt. And I also cut the green fabric on the shoulders a little bit so the t-shirt wouldn't look too squarey. Then I assembled the top parts of the t-shirt together. After making the rectangles of the sleeves a little longer on one side than the other one, I was able to attach those sleeves directly onto the t-shirt. I also realized that I forgot to add some beige felt onto the neck, so I did add this really quickly before putting the t-shirt onto the doll. and finishing sewing the t-shirt directly onto the doll. And as you can see, my stupid hair is getting in the way. I'm so sorry, that's so annoying. Oula. This happened once I was just done with the body, so that's why please just use thicker aluminum wire than what I used. Now that the body is done, it is finally time for my favorite part, aka sculpting the face. I love this part. You can literally give life to a piece of clay and just, I love it. That's when I feel like I'm creating something the most, is when I give a face to something I create. I don't know if that makes sense, but I love it. So I just use a piece of tin foil and I make a little ball out of it that I cover with polymer clay. I don't think there's any rule to this part except doing what you feel like doing, letting a little your feelings and your gut do the work for you. You can really give shape to your creativity. There are so many ways to sculpt the nose, to sculpt the mouth, to sculpt the eyebrows and stuff. This part is so fun. You can experiment, you can remove parts if you don't like them, you can sculpt them back. No matter how many dolls you do, in my experience, the face always comes out so differently. Perhaps it's because I'm not really experienced and I'm still, trying out some different things. But yeah, I've made like 3, 4 dolls yet, and each time the face is totally different. For instance, I chose to make a round bowl of tinfoil to start with, but you can definitely, if you want a more realistic version, make a more oval shaped face like I did with another doll. In my experience, I always start by carving the eyes where the buttons will be and then adding some depth around them. Then you can see that I added a little piece of clay for the chin, but honestly you can even choose to not make a chin and keep the face really round. Then I added the nose. I always have to make the nose at least 1,000 times before I'm satisfied with it, because I don't know why it never comes out right the first time. I used to make little holes for the nostrils, but then I just abandoned this because it seemed hard and not fun to me. So I just went with a more simplified nose shape. Then I also tried to give the back of the crane a more realistic shape and to mark where the jaw is supposed to be. And I personally love adding some clay to make the eyebrows shape, which really gives the doll some thick eyebrows, but you can also just paint these eyebrows directly on the face, and this way you will be able to achieve a much thinner look for the eyebrows. I also added some dark rings under the eyes because I wanted to make it look like the buttons were sunk really deep into the skin. And then I added the ears. Now I am always so scared to mess up this part because it already happened to me to bake the face of a doll and then the ears just breaking and falling down. You have to be very careful at this step to make the ears thick enough so they won't break so easily and to attach them very well onto the face. You can also see that I used a lot of different little tools to sculpt and carve. Those little silicone tools especially are really practical to seal different pieces together, but if you don't have them, you can definitely also do something really nice without necessarily having them, but it's true that they're really practical. When the ears were done, it was time to make the buttons. Then I sculpted a little pair of sambas for the doll, since I made the doll for a friend and that's the shoes she wanted. This part really depends on the type of shoes you want to sculpt. I would say you're not even forced to sculpt shoes. If you don't want, you can just let the doll without any feet. It's not really weird looking in my opinion. For this part, I literally just took a picture of sambas as a reference and then I did my best to sculpt them the best I could with this reference. So I tried to first get the general shape of the shoes and then, curve and sculpt the little details on top of it. The tricky part with the shoes is to make the second shoe exactly like the first one, and this is always the most frustrating part because obviously you can never get both shoes the exact same. There will always be one that is bigger than the other, one that is more detailed, but honestly, I think this part is about learning resilience and learning that it cannot be perfect, it cannot be exactly symmetrical, but that's fine. Then I put all of those little elements into the oven, and once they're baked, it's finally time to paint them. I absolutely love this part because that's the moment where the doll is finally coming to life. So what I first do is that I apply sort of like a foundation all over the face, just to make sure the color of the skin fits the skin tone that I want to achieve. So once I'm done with applying a beige paint for the skin tone, I also paint the whole area where there's gonna be hair in the hair color to make sure that when the hair is gonna be glued to the head, the potential holes where you're still gonna be able to see the skin will not appear too much and will kind of blend with the color of the hair. My cat enjoys it a lot when I'm painting, and it looks like she wants to help, but all she does is, I guess, supporting me mentally, which is nice. Thank you, girl. When I was done painting the skin, the eyebrows, and the lips, I wanted to add a little bit of life to the skin tone, so I added a little bit of blush on the cheeks and a little bit of color as well under the eyes and stuff. So after I was done with the painting, I varnished the whole thing and I passed some sewing threads in the button eyes to make it look like they were sewed on the face. For the hair, a technique that I like to use is just to hang a thread of yarn and then to cut some bits of yarn 2 times the length you want for the hair, and then I attach the little length of hair onto the thread and I make a little knot and I add some more strands of hair, and once I'm satisfied with it, I cut the sides of the thread. It's a little hard for me to explain that with words, but I think you can see what I'm talking about with the images. And once I'm done with it, I basically have like a strand of hair extension made with wool, and I can glue these onto the doll's head. So I start at the bottom of the head, and then I add a second row of hair, and then I add the hair on top of the head, and to make sure that there aren't any holes left on the doll's head, because obviously you don't want the doll to look bald when you shake it a little bit. What I do is just that I glue some hair directly onto the bald spots so they won't be noticeable. If ever you decide to make your own Coraline inspired doll after watching this video, please show it to me, I don't know, on Instagram or something, because yeah, it would be really nice to see if someone is ever inspired to make one after this. I make sure to cut the doll's hair a little to make sure she has a nice little haircut. And then you can basically assemble the doll's face, the shoes, and the body. So I just used hot glue to put them together. So here's what the doll looks like. She's pretty tall, as you can see, and I made her a little cap because my friend wanted her to have this little cap. I think it's so cute. Look at this. She looks so happy to be here. Honestly, my only regret is that she's a little too tall, and that also the felt I use for the body is really poor quality because it is making those little bits of stuff that I don't like. But other than that, she's pretty cool. And also, definitely don't make the same mistake than me and use a thicker wire for the body, because I had to repair her stomach because it was broken. So please just don't do that. These are also other dolls that I've made like last year. So this one was the first I made. As you can see, I tried to sculpt the hands, but it was a disaster, so I just abandoned this idea. And for this one, I actually used a thicker aluminum wire, which makes the doll really much sturdier. And at first I thought she was too stiff, but honestly that's better than when I used the thinner aluminum wire. So here's what she looks like. This one looks a lot like cartoony, if that makes sense, compared to the second one I did, which I made the mistake of using a thinner aluminum wire, and she broke as well, like her spine broke. So yeah, I didn't have time to repair her yet. But yeah, for this one I made her face shape oval, which makes her a lot more realistic, I'd say, even though she's not really realistic. So here's what she looks like, and I've sculpted her little sneakers. I like the 3 of them, but as you can see, they turned out completely differently from one another. So thank you for watching this video. It was real nice. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, if you're interested in crafting and trying to create art and having fun, you can check out my channel. I do all sorts of little crafting and drawing and painting videos. So I'll see you soon for another video. Bye!